Hello, welcome to the cockpit of the Aerosoft CRJ 700. Today we're going to demonstrate FSFO Next ability to take this aircraft from the cold and dark to ready to taxi state. Again, this will be a brief demonstration. If you're looking for more of a detailed explanation on how FSFO Next works, please see the video to this involving the fly-by-wire A320. Okay, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and fire up FSFO Next. Again, this is a pre-deployment build, so we may run into some bugs along the way. I'll definitely get those fixed before we push this to the public. Hopefully by the end of this week. Okay, so let's go ahead and fire up the electronic flight bag here. As you can see, FSFO is linked to your simulator, and it has detected the Aerosoft CRJ, which we have a license for. Again, because we're in auto flow mode, all you have to do is open the door. In which case, the co-pilot will enter the cockpit and immediately start his
Good afternoon, Captain.
Similar to the fly-by-wire A320, he'll start by performing his safety checks. And there's the power coming up. And as you can see here, he's asking us to connect the GPU via the electronic flight bag. Unfortunately, this right here, everything listed with this is not exposed right now. Hopefully it will become in the future, so this you will have to interact with, but that's it. You're going to have to click a total of 3 buttons to configure this aircraft from cold and dark to taxi state. So here's one now. Let's go ahead and connect the GPU. And as you can see, the GPU is connected and the power is coming up. The next thing the co-pilot will do is he will check the overhead panels. He will set the internal and external lights, turning the nav light on. Once power is established, your nav light should be on. Now he's going to go ahead and align the IRSs. He's going to set the last position on his FMS.
You can program the CDU now.
And now we can program the CDU. But this is also a good time for us to import our flight plan into FSFO Next.
Heading out for my checks.
Again, as previously explained in the video, FSFO Next needs some parameters from your flight in order to execute certain features. For example, during the pre-flight flow, before start flow, you'll see the co-pilot set the landing elevation. He can't do that unless he knows which airport we're landing at, so that's why it's important to import a flight plan. Importing a flight plan is easy. For those who use SimBrief, all you have to do is export any one of the FS 2004, 2020, P3D, FSX flight plans and import it into to FSFO, and that's all you have to do. If you don't use SimBrief, I highly encourage you look into this. It's free. It's an absolutely amazing freeware dispatch and flight planning system. Okay, so now that we downloaded our flight plan, I'm going to use Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 flight plan. Again, you can use any of the others. And that's all you need. That's imported. We are going to select runway 33. The reason why this is important is when the co-pilot comes back from his checks on the exterior of the aircraft, the walk-around, he's going to go ahead and set the autopilot. In order to set the runway heading, he needs to know which runway we're taking off. You'll also see him set the altitude, which is based on this parameter right here. SID is no. And flaps detent 2. So this isn't flaps 2, this is the detent. In this aircraft, the second detent is flaps 8. The first detent is flaps 1. So I want the co-pilot to configure flaps 8 during the after start flow. Runway 27 is our landing runway. Again, this is important because during the descent flow, the co-pilot will actually configure his multi-functional display. He will move his format to the ILS, and he will also set the nav source again to ILS. This will allow you to see to intercept, the ILS glide slope and path. He will also set the course to this heading right here. Obviously, he can't do that unless he doesn't know which runway you're landing on. Aerosoft CRJ exposes the V-speed, so that's already imported for you. You don't have to do that. So that's all you have to do. Now we'll go back to the home screen here, and you can see the co-pilot is still on his walk around, and this is a great time for us to configure the FMS. Although the co-pilot has already configured our our initial reference page. I'm going to go ahead and do it for you, just for those of you who may be unfamiliar with this aircraft can see how it's done. All you have to do is put the ICAO code of the airport you're currently at, put that in the airport position, then move to the second page, grab the second line, then move back to the previous page and input that into set position. As you can see, we literally just set the position that was already entered because the co-pilot already did that for you. I'm just showing you how to do it. Okay, so let's move on to the flight plan. Again, this is a short flight, 189 nautical miles from Bangor International down to Logan. So we'll input that here, the origin and destinations. We'll execute that. We'll move to our performance initialization page. Then we'll scroll back over to Dave here. Again, aircraft is pretty easy to configure. We'll put some weights that were given to us by SimBrief. And then we'll set that in the simulator. And then we'll copy that over to FMS. And while we're here, we'll go ahead and set our V-speeds on the PFD. As you can see, they've been configured here for us. Here's all of our data. I did notice I put the wrong altitude in my flight plan. The altitude is at 20,000 feet today. So let's go ahead and enter that now. 20,000 feet, execute. Check the VNAV setup, all looks good. The speed restraints is 250 below 10,000. Everything looks accurate there. So now we can come over to our departure and our arrival. Select the Bangor 4 departure, runway 33. Execute that. Come back. Our arrival airport is going to be the Ocean 5 via E&E transition, and then ILS 27 approach. And there we go. Check our legs page, and we're all set up. So that is our flight ready to go. That is all you have to do as the pilot to configure this aircraft. So if you are a novice flight simulator and you want to fly this pretty complicated aircraft, you can do so with FSFO Next. All you have to do is watch a quick two-minute tutorial on how to program the FMS, which is as quick as I just demonstrated, and you'd be good to go. Moving back to the home screen, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, for the sake of expediency, hold the control key.
Aircraft is good. Weather reports look pretty good.
And what that does is basically ends the co-pilot's walk around. As you see, as we previously discussed, the co-pilot is now setting the heading. He set that to 330. Now he's going to go ahead and set the altitude to 2000, which we already discussed. And we just got an ACARS message informing us what the weather is at our departure and arrival airport. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and run a pre-flight checklist. I will do this first one in button mode, as previously explained in the prior video. Anytime the voice recognition engine is not active, you will be in button mode. So button mode for checklist, essentially the co-pilot will call the checklist item and wait for it to be set correctly before moving to the next item. So I'll demonstrate that now.
Pre-flight checklist. Oxygen. Tested. Flight instruments. Heading set. Altitude set. Throttle. Closed. Fuel control switches. Cut off. Parking brake. Set. Checklist complete.
Again, I will run through that again. No, I think we said this was going to be a brief demonstration, so I think you got a pretty good idea on how the button mode works. But if you want more explanation, just see the video prior to this. Okay, with that out of the way, again, because we're in an auto flow move, let's go ahead and close the door, which signals to the co-pilot to start his before start flow. Now this flow is okay. Excuse me. I meant to turn off the flight attendant message here because I prefer to use FSFO Next's flight attendant. If you prefer to use Aerosoft CRJ one, just keep this activated and turn off cabin messages here. They can kind of conflict with each other, as you just heard, if you leave them both on. Okay, so now the co-pilot is going through his before start flow. He's checking the hydraulic pressure to make sure it's good, so he turns them all on, then turns them all off to check the pressure. Again, this flow is lengthy. He has a number of checks and tests to perform, so this would be a good time for you, if you're an online flyer, to upload your flight plan into VATSIM, to configure your virtual airlines ACARS program, to do all those the paperwork, if you will, while the co-pilot configures the aircraft. Another thing I want to show you real quick as the co-pilot sets the air condition is you're going to see a number of checks. In fact, you can see him right now. He's running through the ice detection test up here. These tests are based on a parameter would perform tests when aircraft is not powered. So essentially, when the co-pilot entered the cockpit, it was a cold and dark state. So we assumed this was the first first flight of the day, which requires about 8 tests to be performed. He just, as you see, performed the stall test. If you need to save time, you can simply set that to no. And these tests that are being performed right now, he wouldn't execute during the before start flow. As you can see, he's working himself systematically through the cockpit, starting up here on the clear shield with the stall test, and then moving down here to the throttle and down to the pedestal. Once they're done the overheat test, you should check the lamps, the lights, to make sure all the lamps are illuminated on the aircraft. One more to do, and then he'll work himself further down the pedestal until the aircraft is completely configured. Again, this is a TCAS test, lengthy flow. This is, again, where I like to coordinate with the VATSIM controllers. And by the time the co-pilot is done with this, I am ready. I have pushback clearance, and I am ready to go with everything I need. Yaw dampener is coming online. Again, systematically working himself down. You see Mach trim set and external lights. Okay, so now he's starting the APU. Again, we need the APU bleed for engine start. In a moment, once the APU spools up, it takes about 30 seconds. The co-pilot is going to ask us to disconnect the GPU and the wheel chocks. As stated previously, again, this data is not exposed, so this is the only interaction you need to do as the pilot. The co-pilot will configure this aircraft completely for you, which is awesome. If you're a no-FS pilot and you still want to fly this aircraft, you can do that with the FSFO Next. All you have to do, again, is program the FMS, and he will take care of everything else for you. There we go, ground power unit. We'll disconnect now, and we will remove our wheel chocks. And again, this is a FSFO Next generator flight attendant. I prefer the messages here as opposed to the Aerosoft flight attendant ones. Okay, so let's run through the voice checklist, but let's use voice. Before start checklist.
Before start checklist. Doors
Closed.
Fuel 9858 pounds. Check passenger signs.
On.
Hydraulic panel.
Set.
Packs.
Is set. Set.
Window heat.
On.
Fuel pumps.
Set.
Takeoff speeds V1 130, VR 130, V2 140. Check FMS preflight.
Completed.
Taxi and takeoff briefing.
Completed.
Beacon lights.
On.
Checklist complete.
Okay, there's the pre-flight, the checklist completed. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to showcase another feature of FSFO Next, which is controlling the pushback by our voice. And we can do that by contacting ground. Ground from cockpit.
Go ahead.
Ready for pushback.
Steering pin inserted. Release brakes.
Parking brake off.
Parking brake off.
Starting push. Cleared to start engines.
And we'll wait to do that until we get a good push. I just heard an error. Oh, okay. These will once we start the engines, those will be satisfied. Oop. Nose left.
Nose left.
Stop pushback.
Stopping pushback. Set parking brake.
Parking brake on.
Parking brake on.
Steering pin removed. Cleared to taxi. Have a great flight.
Okay, I should have, you can mute your voice by hitting Control M. I should have done that because I accidentally said before start flow, and the co-pilot went ahead and executed that. Okay, so let me unmute, and now I'm going to command the co-pilot to start the engines. Start engines.
Starting engine 2.
And again, once the N2 rises above 20%, the aircraft, the co-pilot will introduce fuel into the system, which he just did. And that will ignite the engine, and we'll wait for the engines to stabilize before moving to the first one. Engine 1, excuse me. And there we go. So engine 1 is almost stabilized. And that right there is a Aerosoft cabin message, which I didn't shut off. I just shut off the flight deck messages.
Starting engine 1.
Now that 2 is stabilized, they will move to 1. And while that's doing that, I am going to go ahead and turn off the cabin noises.
If there is smoke in the cabin during the evacuation of the aircraft, the walkway emergency lights will display to the exits, which are located here and here. In case of an extreme emergency landing, you will be instructed to get into the brace position.
Now it's 2. Fuel is going to introduce into the system. There it comes. And we have good ignition on engine 1.
We thank you for paying attention during this brief presentation.
And it's saying emergency lights are on, but I just took a look and they look like they're on to me, or armed. Okay, we'll have to figure out what that is. That's interesting. No biggie. There we go. We'll have to make sure that's checked and that got set during the before start flow. So engines are all stabilized. You can see the N2s match each other.
Engine 2 cut out. All engines stable.
So the engines now that are stable, the co-pilot will go ahead and he will initiate the flow. Oh, I'm sorry. Since I aborted a checklist, what that does, it automatically turns off autoflows. You have to go back in and turn it on if you choose to abort a flow. I accidentally did it because it picked up an inadvertent command. There you go. Now that we turned on autoflow, he's performing his after start flow. Stopping the APU. And setting the external lights. So the taxi lights will come on now, as you can see here. Nose wheel steering switch is coming armed. And that's it. So the flow is complete. Let's run through our taxi checklist. Taxi checklist.
Taxi checklist. Anti-ice.
Off.
Packs.
Set.
Flaps.
Set.
Trim.
Set.
Flight controls.
All right, here he's looking to move full left, full right.
Full left. Full right. Full back. Full forward. Check. Ground equipment.
Clear.
Checklist complete.
All right, and we have a throttle disagreement. What that is I haven't calibrated my throttles yet, so I'll have to do that before my next flight. All right, so let's go ahead and taxi out to the runway. Oop, parking brake off. Parking brake off.
Parking brake off.
There we go. Let's go ahead and taxi out to the runway. Wasn't planning on doing this, but let's go ahead and taxi out anyways. As you can see, the point of the video was just to see how FSFO Next, how the virtual copilot can completely configure this aircraft for you to include running all the necessary system tests. All you had to do, again, was program the FMS and click a few buttons on the electronic flight bag. Other than that, as it is usually in real life, the pilot flying is taking care of the paperwork, coordinating with
from the flight deck, this is your first officer. Welcome aboard. As you can see, we have some pretty good weather, so we're not anticipating any delays. So sit back, relax, and we'll have you in the air shortly.
And as I was saying, the pilot's normally handling the paperwork contact, or excuse the pilot flying, the paperwork, the communication portion, all that stuff. While the co-pilot is, or pilot not flying, is configuring the aircraft. So you'll have to excuse the taxi out. Again, this is on the development machine, so rudimentary equipment as far as flight gear is concerned.
Gear disagree.
And we still get a gear disagree.
Gear disagree.
We'll have to figure out what that is. Real quick, this aircraft right here, very underrated aircraft in my opinion. You'll hear some people refer to it as not being study level. My opinion, and my opinion only, study level is kind of an overused term in the flight sim community. This aircraft is exceptional at performing the day-to-day real-world flight parameters of its real-world counterpart. So no, it doesn't have failures or those things that people tend to enjoy, but no less sophisticated, no less enjoyable to fly. And at least for me, I find this aircraft to be far more stable than it was in P3D. I sometimes had some problems with the flight characteristics and dynamics when flying this in P3D version 5. I'd probably do a fly out. Again, I'm looking. You're hearing the disagreement. My calibrations are way off, so this aircraft is probably going to pull to the right very, very hard, but that's okay. And I'm going to mute my voice by hitting Control M so it doesn't pick up any other checklists. Normally, obviously, you would not talk this much during the the taxi phase of the aircraft, so it normally doesn't pick up those inadvertent commands. But the soft mute or Control M that's what that's for. So it's not listening right now. The voice recognition engine's active. It's just not listening. All right, as we come around to the runway, let's go ahead and execute our before takeoff checklist. Unmute. Before takeoff checklist.
Before takeoff checklist. Flaps.
Set. There comes the
Exterior lights.
Set. Set.
Packs.
Set.
Transponder.
Set.
Checklist complete.
Flight attendants prepare for takeoff.
Okay. As you can see, the co-pilot is setting his multifunctional display. He also set his terrain radar on, and hopefully we'll have a working weather radar soon, but he went ahead and switched that on as well. He also switched yours on. Okay, so on the roll here, what you're going to hear is you're going to hear a call of 80 knots. What I did not explain is this is another configurable option. You can do so here. I know some of the European airlines, their SOP is to call 100 knots. In the U.S. it's 80, but you can configure that here as well as pretty much everything else with the takeoff roll. I know I said I wasn't gonna go this far, but let's go ahead and we'll execute a takeoff. I'll demonstrate FSFO's ability to go ahead and set your throttles to the takeoff position by calling takeoff power. So here we go. Takeoff power. Again, because my throttle does not agree.
Thrust set.
There we go. My apologies. I should have calibrated all that before the flight, but I honestly did not
Speed alive.
check. I honestly did not plan on going this far out.
80 knots.
Check.
V1, rotate. V2, landing gear down. Positive rate.
Gear up.
Landing gear up. .400 feet.
Heading select.
Set.
Set speed. 210.
Speed. 210. Acceleration altitude.
VNAV.
VNAV on.
Autopilot on.
Command A on.
Set heading. 270. And again, I knew this was going to happen because the calibration issues with my yoke, but that's okay. As you can see, we're pulling, and then once we get up, set speed. Oh, he's still configuring the heading.
Heading. 270.
Set speed.
Stand by.
Oh, he's busy doing something else. Set speed. 210. Set speed. 210.
Speed. 210.
There we go. And you can see once we get to flaps 1. Flaps 1.
Flaps 1.
Flaps up.
Flaps up.
After takeoff checklist.
After takeoff checklist. Landing gear.
Up.
Flaps.
Up.
Packs.
Set.
Checklist complete.
And as you can see, the co-pilot right now is just running through his systems checks. He set his FMS now to the progress page, and we are set to go. Let's go ahead and intercept right here. LNAV.
LNAV on.
And we'll go direct to E&E. And after we get above 10,000 here, you should see the co-pilot will switch off the landing and the taxi lights. And
Passing 10,000 feet.
There we go. Those are off. So there you have it. That is FSFO. Completely configured your aircraft. I did notice one anomaly on the way out. When I set the heading, he rotated clockwise. 270, actually, the quicker route was counterclockwise, so we should have went that direction. I'll have to fix that before releasing. Also, I hit the G button, so when you hear the gear disagreement, it's because the landing gear was not down. That was my my error with hitting the wrong keyboard on the hitting the wrong key on the keyboard. That's why you also heard the co-pilot say landing gear down when we took off. But my fault. Otherwise than that, I think this is a pretty good demonstration of FSFO's next ability with the CRJ. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the comments. And until next time, the next aircraft working on is the CRJ. Excuse me, the Captain Sim 777 and the Azobo 747, which will be out shortly after the CRJ. So with that, I hope you all have a great evening, and look forward to talking to you soon.